Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Fits here in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world. But then you too are at the center of the world. So the idea I want to work with this morning is the wedding cake knife that cuts two ways. Now I speak from experience because I started doing weddings in 1987 and I was a wedding photographer, and I'm retired now. Basically, and I've forgotten when the last wedding was. I did. It's been a while, and but I understand weddings as the great ritual, our secular sacrament. A wedding is a sacrament in the same way that the Catholic Church has sacraments, except the wedding sacraments are universal. It doesn't matter what religion or belief or political party or race or whatever. We all participate in the wedding sacraments. And one of the biggest sacraments, rituals, is the cake cutting. This is always the best first part of the wedding. I always tell for the photographer, everything else is pretty much planned. But when it comes to cutting the cake, there's always a question. Are they going to smash the cake or feed the cake? And of course, the bride and the groom will all make, you're not going to smash it. No. And so they cut the cake there. They cut a little piece and they all got it all very carefully. And then there's that little twinkle, the little grin. And usually the bride will smash the groom. Boom. And then the poor groom, his buddies are all standing around there. He's got to save face. He's got to smash her. Even running her down. Sometimes it gets kind of vicious. And I've seen one wedding break up right there. You promised not to do that. I can't trust you anymore. So that's a very interesting point because it's the first time the cake knife cuts two ways. So I've moved on from wedding cakes and doing weddings. And I moved into to Zen and the Sword of Manjushri. You see that sword there? This is the Bodhisattva of Prajna, which is the flashing sword of Zen that heals when it cuts. You see, the sword, any knife, the butcher's cleaver, is used to divide, to wound, to kill, to slash, to cut asunder. If you want to cut a rope, you get a sword. Boom, you cut the rope into two parts, you see. But the sword of Manjushri, while it cuts, it unites. While it cuts instead of dividing, it heals. So this is an ambiguous sword. It's a Zen sword. It's an ironic sword. See, irony is the opposite of what it says. So the ironic sword is the sword of Manjushri or Prajna. It's that heals instead of cuts. It does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. You see. But when you use it, you use a sword to cut. Yet this one heals. So this is a paradox. You can't really figure it out. You can't do one or the other. Usually, the wedding cake. Well, let's talk about the wedding cake because let's talk about using the sword of Manjushri is described as a flashing sword. It whips out whoosh, like that and whoosh, like that. You see, it's like a flash of light. It's lightning. It's not a slow sawing, you see. It's a flashing cut. Whoosh, you see. Just like a flash of light. A flash of insight. A flash of aha. You see, in Zen it's called Satori or Kensho. It's the flash of unifying vision that doesn't come from thinking or willpower, you see, or effort. It comes spontaneously, a surprise. But it only comes after you practice trying to, after you discover the suffering of the knife you're using. So it's only after you discover that you cannot use the knife to unite relationship, but you must, that the sword of Manjushri flashes forth, you see. That probably doesn't make sense, but that's okay. So the wedding cake is kind of like a ritual, it's a metaphorical cake. First of all, it's not an ordinary cake. You spend a lot of money for that thing. It's all got 3 tiers. So it represents the whole cosmos. And of course, on the top, you see, is the little 3rd tier, the little bride and groom, the unity. So this is the cosmos in unity. Now you cut a piece from it, and I always used to have to show the bride and groom how to hold a knife so they could both do it. You know, some of them, we'll let the bride cut it. Let her cut it. She's the cook. No, you both put your hand on the knife together, and you cut a little piece, and then you serve each other that, you see. So the whole ritual, the sacrament, is cutting a piece of creating a world, beautifully decorated. You are the world is you. And you cut a piece from each, and you break it. You break the cake, right? But then you feed each other the broken pieces. This is the sacrament of Jesus. I mean, what is Jesus but the Eucharist, but breaking the bread and then feeding it to the people, to unify the people through the death of the whole. So you break the whole apart, but then you eat the part to restore the whole. So you get to keep your cake and eat it. This is a phrase everybody uses. You can't keep your cake and eat it at the same time. Well, if it's a wedding cake, you can. And if you're using the sword of Manjushri, you can. Because the sword of Manjushri divides the cake and unites the cake at the same time. Now this is illogical. It's a paradox. It's absurd. But it's Zen. But it's the sword of Prajna that heals when it cuts. So in order to see that, you see, this is the problem. It's not logical. You can't you can't find a manual, you can't find an instruction book, or you can't go to training or class and do yoga and meditation and go to Zen centers and self-help and get a seer or soothsayer or go to a therapist. All these means, you see, cannot arouse the sword of Manjushri. So the sword of Manjushri is aroused when you have no more strategies, when you've exhausted all of your strategies, when there's no more hope, when you can't figure out what you don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And when you truly don't know what to do, and you truly have no more hope, the sword of Manjushri flashes forth and heals the contradiction, and you see what to do. My mother, close with this, my favorite story of my mother, who, when she was 100, she was still driving, and she lost her car keys in the house, and for days she was going in circles looking for her keys. And she said, I'm going to have a stroke if I can't find. I just don't know what to do. I know they're here, but I can't find them. And finally, she exhausted all of her strategies and realized she was looking under the same magazine 10 times, hoping maybe I missed it the other time. And she just said, I just gave it all to, I just quit. I just said, here, God, you take it. I quit. And immediately, the sword of Manjushri flashed forth, and she found herself walking into the bedroom and walking to her closet. She had no idea what she was doing. She stuck her hand in a pocket, and there were the keys. You see, it just flashed. But the flashing forth was the doing. You see, it wasn't like she didn't think, oh, I think I'll go look in my closet. She didn't know why she was going to the closet. There was no little voice, look in the closet, look in the closet. There was no little voice. Jesus didn't tell her. An angel didn't guide her. She just found herself walking into the bedroom, putting her hand in the pocket, and there was the Sword of Manjushri. There was the key to the kingdom. There was the key to the kingdom, you see. So anyway, she told me that story, and it stuck with me because it just has a lot of wisdom in it about we're all looking for the keys to the kingdom, and we keep looking in the same place twice, but we never find them until we give up looking, when there's just no hope. There's no hope of finding a way out. That's when the door opens, and that's when you find the Sword of Manjushri in your hand, so that what you're doing, instead of dividing the world into more and more fragments, the more and more contradictions, the more and more obstacles and divisions and pain, that same sword heals it. Heals the cake. Brings all the pieces of the world that you've cut into little bits, all back into one world. And you are that, you see. You are the world, and the world is you, and you are at the center of the world. So when I say in the morning, welcome to Blackstone, the center of the world, but you are the center of the world, that is a whole world. That is a healed world. That is a unified world, and you are it. You and your world are now one, instead of being cut into a billion little pieces, with you using the sword to wound the world instead of healing the world. Okay, thanks for dropping in. See you next time.